It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. Reuters reported that Consumer Financial Protection Board, or CFPB, has halted its investigation into the theft of personal data from the credit monitoring company Equifax. Last September, Equifax informed the public that hackers had stolen personal credit data of 143 million people from Equifax, and CFPB, under the director of Richard Cordray, immediately announced it would launch an investigation into the massive data theft. However, Cordray, an Obama appointee, left the agency in November to run for governor of Ohio. Trump's budget director, Mulvaney, took over the agency and is now halting various investigations, including the Equifax scandal being just one of them. So joining me now to analyze what's going on with the Equifax data breach is Bill Black. Bill is a white-collar criminologist, an associate professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And he's the author of The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Thank you.
So, Bill, let's start off with the significance of halting this investigation into Equifax data breach.
So let's start with the substance and then go to what it indicates about ideology as well. This is probably, of course, you never know because you don't know what data breaches have not been disclosed, but probably the largest data breach in history. And it's the kind of breach that when it happens in the future, the thieves are going to be able to use the information exceptionally quickly to do exceptional harm. But they don't seem to have gotten their act together enough yet to have been able to do that with Equifax. So this is the one we really need to learn from. And fix things quickly because the next one is going to be vastly more harmful. And Equifax, as you said, this is 143 million people that it affected. So, a goodly portion of the United States of America. Each of us is directly put at risk. And it's a particularly nasty thing because, of course, as a credit rating agency, we are not the customers. So we can't say, oh, we're going to cease doing business with Equifax because they're so outrageous, both in terms of allowing the hack and then everything they did after the hack until Elizabeth Warren successfully pressured them to at least clean up some of their response. Was the word reprehensible really describes it. But we can't protect ourselves, and we can't force them, Equifax, to do the right thing by withdrawing because we're not really a customer, which is to say, again, we critically need investigation and relief. And the agency, the absolute agency in the entire world, best situated to do the investigation and produce an effective remedy is the CFPB, and that is precisely the agency that Trump will not allow to act. And it isn't like nobody's investigation. All 50 states' attorney generals are investigating Equifax. And that, of course, is simultaneously good news and bad news because it's crazy to have 50 separate places investigating. That's why you have a federal government, right? So that you can have a federal agency that has the expertise and the staff level and the computers, the systems needed to do the investigation. And on top of that, the CFPB under Cordray was doing the investigation the right way. It said, hey, the Federal Trade Commission also has some jurisdiction here. Let's do a joint investigation, right? It's more effective. It's less cost to Equifax. It's pure good thing. And Cordray, when he was running CFPB, said, and the banking regulatory agencies are heavily involved here because they monitor aspects of credit rating agencies, and banks use credit ratings, of course, all the time in making loans. So we should take advantage of the expertise of these banking regulatory agencies and the facts that they have staffs of examiners who have individual expertise in looking at both how the banks that are the key Equifax customers use this, but at Equifax itself, right? So Cordray brings them in, and they all say yes. So all of that has been thrown away by Mulvaney, who, mind you, as you said, is running OMB, which at the time of the budget deals and everything else is 150% of your time type job. And he's supposed to do that job and then with his little time left over, run the CFPB, which is, of course, a farce, which is to say the only order he's given is, thou shalt not do anything productive, right? So it's absolutely insane. Now, that filters into the politics because nobody likes Equifax.
And Bill, especially since Equifax announced it would provide various new identity theft protection services to which consumers may subscribe should their data have been compromised by the hacking of Equifax. So shortly after this took place, Senator Elizabeth Warren, in a Senate hearing, pointed out that Equifax was exploiting ways to profit from its own data breach. Now, first of all, is that what took place? And if so, does Equifax even have an incentive to protect our data if they can still make more money from the fact that if it was breached?
Yeah, so Equifax took the old saying, when you're dealt lemons, make lemonade. But here, of course, they had done the deal, right? They had stacked the deck in a way that shafted all of us. And they said, screw making lemonade. Let's make you pay to make us more profitable because we completely screwed up. And they didn't just screw up, they screwed up in every possible way. They screwed up in that the key vulnerability that allowed the hack was identified in advance, by the way, by nonprofits, right, who made it all public free so Equifax could fix it. Because that's what, nonprofits do. Equifax ignored that, allowed the breach to occur. Equifax allowed the breach to go on for months. Then Equifax discovered the breach and refused to notify us so that we could protect ourselves for months while they created A, a lying cover story about it, and B, as you say, a whole bunch of different ways where they could profit from the breach by several different ways, but you've identified one of the major ones, that they would actually force us to pay them fees, both to get access as to how our data had been compromised, and then to supposedly protect us, although why anyone would think Equifax is an entity that would protect us from future breaches effectively is a little beyond me. So, and they only stopped doing this when Elizabeth Warren turned them into a piñata on a daily basis and just smashed them. And the CFPB was coming after them. That is the only reason they ceased being absolutely reprehensible and went back to their old pattern of simply being scurrilous. Right?
Yeah.
And in that context, where nobody likes Equifax, where everybody hates Equifax, including the banks, right? Including most of the key political donors, probably, to Trump. In those circumstances, when it is spectacularly unpopular, where it is a total breach of his duty to the public, where it is a total breach of his oath of office, they are still reflexively, like you hit a patellar tendon and the leg goes whoosh. They just cannot help themselves. They so hate the government. They so hate anything effective to protect the consumers that even when what they're doing is spectacularly unpopular, where it might even cost them, they will continue to do the wrong thing.
Or in this case, when they're offering to help and it would cost them less, they still don't want the help. Now, add fuel to the fire, the Allied Progress Organization points out that Mulvaney's congressional campaign has received thousands of dollars in campaign donations from Equifax. How is it possible that someone who received campaign donations from Equifax is now in charge of monitoring that company and how it's servicing the public?
So, I know this is probably not news, but we're dealing with the Trump administration where conflicts of interest are synergies. That one maximizes, one gets rich by mentioning in presidential speeches, hey, I'm doing free publicity for my golf courses, my hotels, I hold events, I make the federal government pay, where we have openly trade associations, the sleaziest of lobbyists, holding their events at Trump properties. And making it public that they're holding their events at Trump properties because, hey, it's not a conflict of interest, as I say, it's a synergy.
And Bill, what needs to happen to ensure that an entity such as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is truly independent and actually protects consumers against financial fraud of this sort?
Oh, well, first, it's going to get much worse. They are going to actively seek to destroy this agency still. Obviously, they're destroying its effectiveness, and then they're going to turn around and say, see, it doesn't even stop problems. Why do we need it? Type of thing. So it's going to get worse. In truth, Elizabeth Warren structured it very carefully to keep it functional as long as there wasn't something like a Donald Trump in office. Go figure.
Bill, I thank you so much for joining us, and always rather entertaining. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here on the Real News Network.